Next week, I'll be flying to the United States to watch the World Cup. I'll also be meeting up with some friends there. These are friends I met at a private business summit in the US. Recently, we've been chatting a lot on WeChat, and I've gained a lot from those conversations. So today, I'd like to share some of those insights with you. I also want to connect this with a very important piece of international news recently, which is that a recent US proposal has introduced a newborn future planning account initiative, commonly referred to as the Trump account. This plan is designed to help every newborn child begin building long-term financial awareness from birth. From the moment a child is born, an initial contribution of USD 1,000 will be placed into their long-term future planning account, according to projections shared by the US government. If that initial USD 1,000 is left untouched and no additional money is added afterward, by the time the child reaches the age of 55, the account could potentially grow to USD 243,000, that is equivalent to around RM 1 million. In other words, this is government-funded seed money. Through this initiative, the US government is also using the long-term effect of compounding to help the next generation build toward their future financial goals. At first, many of you may feel that this has nothing to do with us. But after speaking with these friends, many of whom are financially successful and have more than 2 children, I had a very deep realization. Why? Because I suddenly realized one thing. In America, many financially successful parents start teaching their children how to think about money, assets, and long-term value from a very, very young age. To be honest, when I look back on my own life, I used to be extremely afraid of anything related to the business market, business world, or long-term planning. I was not only afraid, in fact, the moment I heard those words, I would feel a kind of unexplainable fear. Why was that the case? A big part of it had to do with my family background and the environment I grew up in. Since I was young, my family made a living by running roadside stores. In the morning, we would sell bread by the roadside. At night, we would sell bread at the night market. It was a very, very stable way of life. If you worked, you had income. If you did not work, you had no income. Growing up in that kind of environment, my parents basically never taught us about finance or long-term future planning. They never taught us how to build financial awareness. They never taught us the power of compounding. They themselves also lost quite a lot of money through past financial decisions. My father lost money buying property. He also lost money in business. In the environment I grew up in, almost no one ever said they had improved their lives through financial decisions planning. So in our family, the word asset allocation was basically seen as something dangerous. My parents felt that financial decisions planning was a huge trap. They would often say, "Child, just work hard and earn money. After you earn money, put it into traditional savings. What if you invest recklessly and lose everything?" Financial decisions planning is a bottomless pit. But over the past 10 years, as I went to the United States to learn, entered the private business circle, attended Berkshire Hathaway's shareholder meeting, and truly started practicing long-term asset allocation and applying compounding in my own life, my perspective completely changed. After achieving financial independence before the age of 31, my biggest realization was this: better financial decisions come from better understanding. In other words, when I started earning money step by step through real effort and then put real money into the business markets and learn through actual experience, I began to deeply understand some of the fundamental logic behind money and business operations. Only then did I truly understand that my previous fear of financial decisions planning was at its core caused by a lack of knowledge. I know an older friend who once brought his wife and children over. While we were chatting, I discovered that he had opened a long-term future planning account for his child at the age of 3. From a very young age, he had been giving his child a very deep level of financial education. And this is something extremely important. I remember that a few years ago, I did not feel this so strongly. But later, when I visited financial institutions in Hong Kong, banks in Singapore, and also studied in Silicon Valley, I noticed a very interesting phenomenon. The children of these financially successful families had already received a complete and structured financial literacy education from a very early age. These parents would open a long-term future planning account for their children when they were still very young. Then they would discuss things with them, such as what should we learn about today? Why did the market move this way? This is not about teaching children to gamble. It is about helping children understand how the overall market works. When children see the value in their account rise or fall, what they see is no longer just cold numbers. Because of those numbers rising and falling, they will naturally take the initiative to research the public companies behind them. They will start to understand macro trends. And please take note, I am talking about the US market. I am not talking about the Malaysia market. Let me tell you what the core of this kind of education is. It is not about teaching children to understand a certain job position. It is not about teaching children to simply find a job or work for someone. It is about teaching children to use a higher level perspective from top to bottom to understand the structure of a listed company and the ecosystem of an entire industry. This truly reflects the idea from that very famous book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The poor dad always tells the child, you must get into a good university, find a good job, and work steadily. But the rich dad is different. From childhood to adulthood, he teaches the child how not to depend only on active income, how to let resources grow over time, and how to allocate resources and energy into the right areas. So when you see this kind of education method, you can clearly feel that at that very moment, the child's way of thinking and overall perspective are completely different. I believe this is the earliest and highest level of financial literacy education. Financial literacy is far more advanced than simply teaching children to set up a small roadside stall and sell some handmade items. The ultimate purpose of this kind of education is to help children understand that long-term asset planning is a lifelong matter. Many parents may hear this and say, but I don't understand finance. I don't want my child to take risks. Why should I let my child learn about financial planning? Friends, think about it. Isn't going out to work when a child grows up also a form of planning? The only difference is that they are planning the most expensive thing in the world, their time. They are using their time as money and allocating it into a job position. You must understand this. Time is your scarce productive resource. When you invest your time into a boring job just to exchange it for a little bit of income, think about it carefully. That action itself is also a kind of planning. It is just that the outcome is very limited. Now expand your perspective a little. Is becoming a civil servant also a form of planning? Buying a house is also an allocation, right? When you buy a house, you are essentially believing in the development of that city. What you are buying is the future upside potential of that city. When you spend money on education, you are essentially spending years buying a qualification that you believe will never depreciate. All of these are future planning behaviors. So when a person is able to face the future with long-term thinking and examine every decision they make through that lens, it may become a better way for them to open up their life. This is also one of the biggest realizations I had in the United States. So with that, let me give everyone some of my suggestions. First, I truly suggest that all parents break the sense of shame around money in the family. Many parents are especially uncomfortable talking about money. They feel that making money is difficult. They keep repeating that the family is poor and living with a sense of scarcity. Please stop this kind of behavior immediately. Use a different approach. Talk openly and generously with your children about how money works. For example, when you go to the supermarket, explain to them how businesses make profits. When you see popular news, explain to your children which industries behind the news are creating value. Treat money as a tool. Do not treat money as a heavy burden. Second, you must give children the right to make decisions. It is not just about giving them pocket money for spending. Excellent parents give their children a small amount of money and let them learn how to allocate it. For example, let them try to achieve a measurable learning outcome over time. That experience allows them to understand how money can grow through better decisions It also allows them to feel the impact of market ups and downs. Only after experiencing both the lessons and rewards of the market can they truly develop curiosity and respect toward numbers and the businesses behind them. Third, the earlier financial decision making is developed, the better, because these thoughts and perspectives can guide every choice a child makes. For example, when a child wants to join class or buy an expensive item, do not simply say yes or no. Instead, use the financial decision making mindset and ask them, do you think this money and weekend time will appreciate or depreciate in value for you in the future? Will it make you better over time, or is it only a temporary pleasure? You will realize that a person's life is actually like an unlimited company called me. The best gift we can give our children is not a car or a house. It is to equip them with a financial decision-making mindset or long-term thinking that can understand business cycles and calculate input and output. Alright, that's all for today. Bye bye.